as we know, natural resources has been the bedrock of African development and growth, but it's typically an extractive economy. And there's been a lot of economic development, and that's leading to a lot of industries springing up that are outside of the normal extractive industries, consumer good products, construction and that sort of thing. But another one is agriculture. The agricultural potential of Africa has been shown by the World Bank, by the IMF, and literally anybody else that's done analysis here, that roughly 50 to 60% of the world's arable land, or land that can still be cultivated for agricultural purposes, is in Africa. And the contribution to GDP that agriculture can make is expected to grow by 3 times. That's a huge amount over the next 10 odd years. So, and thankfully we are positioned in one of those industries because we move a lot of agricultural product, but we see a lot of potential there specifically, but of course also in the other niches that I have spoken of as well. But yeah, Africa is an evolving place, lots of new opportunities coming through, and it's an exciting place to be, notwithstanding the difficulties, but that's the way that business is wherever you deal with it. If you run a logistics operation, and logistics is critical to trade because it oils the wheel of trade basically. It's the veins, it's the arteries of trade. And in order to have a good logistics system, you've got to have the basic infrastructure. So you've got to have a place where you can have a workshop, where you can access fuel, you can access tires, you can get labor, you can fix your vehicles and that type of thing. You've got to have a good road infrastructure. Because clearly that's how the product moves. If it's rail, then you've got to have a good rail infrastructure. And then of course you've also got to have a good capability to facilitate trade. And clearly when you're going cross-border, the biggest issue there is the border posts. And how do you actually deal with this inter-state trade? And that's where the big challenge lies. Notwithstanding a huge amount of effort and expense that's been put in by all the various countries around South Africa, there's still problems. One of the problems is in South Africa, which is Beitbridge, which is groaning under the weight of product that gets moved through there, to the extent that alternative routes are starting to make sense. So the route through Botswana and KwaZulu into Zambia and into Zimbabwe and Namibia, in fact, is becoming a very attractive alternative, notwithstanding the fact that the trucks there cross the river on a pond. So it's quite an interesting development that's taking place. But yeah, sure, this facilitation of smooth integration of a system that facilitates trade is a big challenge. And we've seen it in the European community. It takes a long time before one actually gets that sorted out. It's easy to set the goal, but the practicality gets quite difficult. There's 3 or so things that are important when you're looking to get into Africa. You've got to understand that it's not a quick fix. There's no quick returns. And I'm sure that business principle applies to most other geographies around the world as well, but it certainly applies to Southern Africa and East Africa, where we're familiar with. And the second thing is that you need to have a pretty good understanding of the markets that you're going to operate in, and it's worth taking time to understand exactly what the dynamics are and what the difficulties are. And tied to that is the third thing, and that is that you need to have good business associates, probably business partners, in each of those countries that you operate in. You have to make sure that you deliver a good product. You have to, I believe, make sure that you are squeaky clean, beyond reproach, and completely reliable. And I think there's another thing, and that is your mindset. Your organization has to have a propensity to be able to deal with a whole host of issues that get thrown at you, some of which you can't even plan for. I mean, we heard one of the speakers talk about Ebola, for example. It didn't fit on any of their risk matrices that they were talking about, and suddenly something comes along like that. If your organization can handle and deal with those blows as they come and prevail, then I think you've got a good future for dealing in the huge continent of Africa.